Good morning, everybody. I do hope you're all safe and sound. Welcome to today's Ask the Expert, Intuit's QuickBooks daily sessions, going live weekday from 8:30 to 9 a.m. If you need any advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are hand 24/7 to help your business needs. QuickBooks also have a dedicated COVID-19 information site. Just go to QuickBooks website, scroll down a little bit and click on the big Learn More button under the header Support for you and your business during COVID-19. My name is Aaron Patrick. I'm your expert for today, a chartered accountant and QuickBooks certified trainer. I own a state-of-the-art accountancy firm called Boffix, which uses the best in cloud technology available to help small business during this crucial time get real information right at their fingertips. If you require accounting advice, payroll or bookkeeping, or anything on aid, then please do get in touch. Okay, so that's enough about me. Let's focus on today's session. The session is all about your burning questions. So make sure you get your questions into us using any of the social channels. Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, whichever works for you. On any of those platforms, use the hashtag QBATE. That's QBATE to get questions over to me. While we wait for the first of the questions, let's talk about some recent developments. So the most important recent development by far has been the announcement of the bounce back loan. This was announced on Monday, the 4th of May. And really what this is all about is looking about getting loans to small businesses when they need it. So from our point of view, our client base, majority of our clients have been able to get the finance they've need to date, but we've not found that's been the case throughout the UK. So what we found throughout the UK is there's been a lot of small businesses who've applied for loans or applied for finances and have been knocked back for various reasons. Some of them could be because they haven't quite got that credit history sorted. Sometimes the actual applying for the loan has taken them too long and they've been short and they've had to apply elsewhere and find other solutions. And sometimes they have been rejected, but with no reasons. And with the state of the banks at the moment, in terms of the fact that they're overloaded in terms of getting a request through and trying to offer support, they're not getting the response they need to understand why they've been knocked back and they've not been able to get the cash crucially in their business at this point in time. So Monday, a new initiative was announced by the government called the Bounce Back Loan Scheme. It's a faster, simpler, and backed 100% by the government, and it gives small businesses the chance to get 2,000 all the way up to £50,000 worth of important funding for their business. Furthermore, it's available in some circumstances with no repayments for the first 12 months and no interest. All of that will be backed and covered by the government themselves. The key thing here compared to the business interruption loan is how easy this scheme is designed to be for you as a small business to apply for. So the idea here is a completely standardized short application. We've heard from banks that it should be around about 2 pages long and the loan should reach businesses within days. I know originally they said 24 hours, but now we've been put to days, but that's still far better than the schemes that have been available beforehand. This is going to be so important to small businesses the especially businesses who've already been knocked back, who've already had rejections coming through. Remember that if you are in that group of businesses at this point in time, think about what application you put in first, and then think about, is this a new initiative available on the 4th of May going to be perfect for your solution, for your situation? If it is, please do keep in touch with your banks, have a look about what gets released on that day, and then apply if needed. If you do have any issues on that, do make sure you reach out to anyone within the COVID-19 support group, as I mentioned before, or us at Boffix as well. I also thought it'd be a good idea to give an indication or an update on the job retention scheme and just think about how that's been. That's now been launched now. So last time we spoke, we hadn't officially launched it, but now it's actually available for you to make that claim. The job retention scheme to date has had almost or over 500,000 claims to the value of 4.5 billion. So this scheme has been really, really useful for small client for our businesses and keeping businesses afloat. Now, one thing to note about that and one thing to remember is that that money has now started to arrive into our clients' bank accounts as well. But don't worry, if you haven't made that application so far, you're not too late. So one thing that was going around at one point was this date of the 22nd of this month, and people were concerned that was a cutoff. That wasn't, in fact, the cutoff for the scheme itself. That was a cutoff for if you needed that cash to be in your bank before payday arrived. So in your cases, if you haven't yet utilized that, then please, please, please put that application in as soon as possible. I've got some pro tips for you as well, because I did a brilliant video with our partners at Ferrilio, so our legal partners at Bofix Ferrilio, and we sat down and we talked about how the application's gone so far, and we looked and saw how businesses have been adapting and businesses have been able to put that application in. So one key tip there is before you press that submit button for the application itself, do read the application from start to finish. One thing you don't get when you press submit is the opportunity to resend or amend or anything like that. This scheme was being built overnight almost, so there's not quite the opportunity there that you'd expect to be able to amend it at a later date or anything like that. We have been told that if you do ring up HMRC, you do have the opportunity to maybe ask them to delete the original application, but with so many applications going in, HMRC aren't guaranteed to be able to get back to you in time to correct anything. So please, 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 before you press that send button, do check that claim thoroughly. Only one claim per period as well. So if you do have a situation we have with some clients where some of their businesses or some of their staff are really easy to calculate in terms of how much to claim back, but then you've got a pot of client or staff that haven't been so simple, unfortunately, do wait until all of your calculations are completed before submitting. Don't submit some now with the idea to try and submit later, because you only get one submission per period. Please make a copy of everything that you submit. That's going to be really useful for you when it comes to the next submission. So remember, we're going to be submitting this on a month-by-month basis at this point in time. So having a copy of that information originally is going to make your calculations more simple. And if you need to, maybe making adjustments for that next period. Always make sure HR is on top of your radar as well. Make sure you've got all the HR all set up in terms of sending letters out to your staff and make sure staff are aware. And then also do make sure that you don't forget about apprentices. If you do have apprentices within the scheme, you have to treat them slightly different. So reach out to people and to advisors about how best to do that, or look at some of the online advice, because apprentices have been a place where people have unfortunately slipped up on in terms of not only the application, but also paying those apprentices as we need. So they were my kind of top tips for making sure your submission for the job retention scheme was going as well as possible. So please, please do reach out if you have any issues. Don't forget to make the application, and don't forget that we're going to be doing this on a month-by-month basis. So, there's going to be more advice out there as we go forward. Okay, then, so let's think about our questions. I can see they've all started coming in now. So our first question from Christina Harlow from Facebook page. Hi, Aaron. Really enjoyed the Ask the Expert series so far. Wondered what your view was on billing for additional work done around furloughing employees and COVID-19 schemes. I know local firms to me seem to be doing this. However, given small businesses struggling for cash, it seems unethical to do this. Is there any guidance? Also, any advice on reflecting your additional work with the engagement letters? Thank you. Wow, that's a really good question. So this is kind of aimed at from an accountant's point of view, and how as accountants can deal with these changing conditions. First of all, let's just cover that engagement letter point at the very end. I spoke to ICW only yesterday in a small practice element, and we did bring this up as a particular topic. Now, at the moment, there is no particular guidance other than do make sure that your payroll section of the engagements area is enough there that you can actually make sure that you've got enough covered. So there is no kind of here's the standard guidance to put there, or here's the standard word in, but do utilize that as an area to go in and just make sure that you are covered for additional work. Also, what we've done additionally, and I think it's going to be useful for most clients or most accountants out there, should I say, is we've also looked at the opportunity of when we're asking for clients for permission to submit their COVID-19 related work, we've asked them to sign off a little disclosure giving us permission to do it on their behalf and just covering our backs a little bit as much as we possibly can. Obviously, we're advisors to clients, so we're going to take most of the responsibility, but we do need to make sure that the information we've received from clients is as accurate as possibly When it comes to the billing question, it has been a hot topic around a lot. I've been speaking to a lot of practice managers about this. Our view was not to charge for anything to do with the COVID-19, but I can completely understand why accountants are actually out there and starting to charge for it. Now, one thing we have learned though is that no accountant out there is going to be charging excessively for it. And if you are on the kind of forefront of being charged for it, do remember that the amount of time that's been invested in it, and there is a value to that time that's been done. So it's a difficult one to kind of answer. There's no right or wrong answer to this one, but you know yourself from your business if you are charging, and you know if you are being charged for it, don't feel like it's a bigger problem. Jack Wheatley from Facebook says, I have got small employed subcontractors that work for me. How does it work in relation to furlough for these? Well, first and foremost, for your subcontractors, they're not available for the job retention scheme. So just make sure that is completely and utterly told to them. So as a subcontractor, they won't be, or traditional subcontractors, they won't be available for that. But do make sure that they have the advice going their way in terms of maybe the self-employed income support scheme, or maybe if they're a limited company, then maybe they need to be looking at possibly the job retention scheme on their own director salary. So it's just communication for those, and making sure they're happy. As a self-employed subcontractor though, you know, they should, fingers crossed, be available for the self-employed scheme. So hopefully they'll get information about that. Do remember on that particular topic though, that nothing's been set in stone at this point in time in terms of that information actually being available or applications being able to submit or anything like that. At this point in time, we're still waiting for HMRC to kind of open the doors, if you like, to that scheme. And we'll have a lot more information on that when it does finally come. But what we do know now is that we are under the impression it's going to be an automated system, and really you just need to wait for an email to arrive from HMRC, and then we should be able to deal with it from there. Some more questions have come through. So we've got Kirsty Dixon from YouTube Live. My business have been massively affected due to this pandemic. What are yourselves and other accountants been offering in help for clients? And I think that's a really, really good question there. Now, the reason that's so prevalent is because we think that, from our clients definitely, we think that it's pivoted at the moment in terms of the way that in which we are giving advice to clients. When this first hit, as you can imagine, from our client's point of view, it was panic in terms of how are we going to get through the next couple of days? How are we going to get through the next week or month, whatever it's going to be? Now that's started to pivot a little bit, where for the majority of our clients are now secure enough that they can kind of comfortably kind of get through this issue. And with the support that's been brilliant from the government and our help as well, we've been able to make sure that our clients are able to be able to kind of get through. Now, the next stage, though, is going to be, how do you start building your business back up? How are we going to make sure that when it comes to coming out of this the other end, that we're going to get our business back to where it was before? And that's our next big step for clients. One of the things that we've been doing for our clients is we offer them bookkeeping advice, and we do their bookkeeping. So we've been able to have real-time information as to how their business is going now. And what that means is that gives us the opportunity to do things like budgeting and looking at situations like that. Now, if you're using QuickBooks, you've got those tools directly in there. And I do have a YouTube video that I go through in a lot more detail when it comes to using QuickBooks to the best of its ability during this particular time. So I'll make sure that that's linked in the comments below, and do have a look at that, because I think at this point, while we've got this time, your next stage as a small business, and what our advice to our clients as small businesses is about thinking about long term. Think about what you're going to do for the next year or whatever it's going to be, so that you've got the opportunity to come back and try and bring yourself back up to where you were before. Now, the problem with that is the uncertainty around it. And the problem with that is also the fact that you're going to need to have quite a rigid and tailored plan to be able to make sure your business can ramp up to those speeds. No one's expecting, from a small business point of view, that we're going to be able to click our fingers as a small business and we're going to go back to where we were before. It's going to be a stage repair, and there's going to be a stage kind of process in terms of getting to where you were before. So as much as possible, try and get yourself some business advisors who can help you on that. And if not, use the software that you've got. Use QuickBooks to look at budgeting. Have a look and see, maybe you can only take on certain members of staff when this is all over. Maybe you need to consider your suppliers. Maybe you need to consider what financing options you've got out there. All these questions are going to be tailored to each individual a small business out there. So do yourself a favor and make sure you've got all the information in hand now and get it all set up so that you can make those decisions as simply as possible. We also had a question from Nathan Hanley from YouTube Live. I take a director salary of £719.33 and then and intend to apply for the job retention scheme. What effect will this have on my self-assessment return? The simple answer is the job retention scheme itself has no bearing on your self-assessment return. Now, the job retention scheme is all about the company. So remember, as a limited company, you have two different aspects to how you disclose to HMRC your earnings. You have the company that you own, the limited company itself, and the corporation tax involved in that. And then you have your self-employed or your self-assessment, which is relating to dividends and also, in this case, the salary you're taking. Now, that salary section, I would advise, and most accountants would advise, would not change during all this. You would still pay yourself, or at least declare on a payslip the same amount that you have been paying yourself for the last year or so. But when it comes to how much you've claimed and going through the claim and everything else, then that's where it's going to affect it in terms of corporation tax and everything else, because you've had a grant coming in, you've had taxable income coming in, so it's going to affect it there. So the short answer is there's no effect to your self-assessment whatsoever, but do make sure that you take into account the effect on your corporation tax. James Harlow from YouTube Live, what are the next steps after claiming job retention scheme and claiming in May? Well, when it comes to the next steps, is really what I've just kind of mentioned there. It's going to be talking about the fact that you as a business now should be in a position where you're comfortable for the next X amount of time. And you should be able to budget yourself for that, because it's quite certain in terms of what income's coming in, and you should be able to make sure that you're comfortable in terms of getting through to the end. Now we've got the bounce back zone. Now we've got all these options. We've got the grants have started to come in for clients as well in terms of making sure that from the council and those schemes are coming through. So from a cash flow point of view, for the majority of clients, that is starting to ease the pressure. Obviously, there's some clients we still need to do work on, we still need to help, and we still need to give the guidance they need. But now it's all about looking in the long term. How are we going to build that business back up? And again, I know I'm going to push it and promote it again, but that YouTube video that I've done will give you an opportunity and give you guidance in terms of how to get your QuickBooks all in line, ready, so you can make those important decisions, so you can plan ahead and you can budget ahead and try your best in terms of figuring out a plan so that you can at least go there. And one of the nice things about QuickBooks is you can put variables into that as well. So using some of the advanced features like classes and locations means you can start looking about, well, this is best case scenario, this might be worst case scenario, and this one is probably, another scenario that I've got to consider. And if you can have as many of those scenarios already lined up and already ready for you to discuss and think about, then you're already going to be one step ahead of the game, and you're going to have an opportunity to make sure you put that in as best as possible. Poom from Facebook Messenger, I want to know if there are any grants that haven't been well publicized that I know of. I'm just generally interested. And yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. Now, when it comes to grants that have been announced by the government, I do think the government grants have been quite well publicized. There's a small one regarding R&D credit. So the R&D, so if you're in research and development, there is some kind of extra support there for you. So if you are in that, it's quite a niche market, but if you are in there, do reach out to an advisor on that one. But I do know that some of the professional bodies out there are helping out their businesses. So the one that comes to example is the Arts Council. They were given £20 million for financial support. So with ideas like that, where they were given some extra support, I believe it's from the lottery or wherever it's from, well, their whole point now is to pass that over to small businesses. So they're looking at, artists, creative practitioners, freelancers, them sort of people who are under the Arts Council umbrella. They're the ones that money has been aimed at. So please, reach out to your professional body, see if they've got anything available, and also your council as well. So your council have got what's called a business emergency relief fund. Most of the schemes have closed now, unfortunately, but do reach out to them. There may be some other pockets of income or pockets of money available to them later down the line. So get yourself signed up for the business emergency relief fund if that's available. Amanda from Facebook Messenger, I borrowed money from my partner to put into my business, and I'm wondering how I should enter it. Is it correct to do as an owner deposit? This money this money I will pay back. Great question. So this is to do with QuickBooks itself and whereabouts to put that. And you're absolutely right. Now, you haven't said in that question if you're a limited company or a sole trader. So that does kind of have a little bit of a difference. As a sole trader, you want to be putting that to capital introduced. So you should find within your options in terms of putting through bank deposit, you should have an option there for capital introduced. If not, there is an option to create a new account and put it around the partner retentions area, and you should have an opportunity there to put capital introduced. If you're a limited company though, then consider a director's loan account or a shareholder's loan account as the best place to put that in. Personally, for me, I create these as kind of cash accounts and not typically cash accounts, but that does mean that when you log into QuickBooks, you'll see on your right-hand side, there'll be that really useful dashboard. And on that dashboard is going to be a breakdown of all cash accounts. If you've got your director's loan account and shareholders loan accounts all sat there, you're not going to forget about that. And that's going to be something you can keep an eye on and make sure it doesn't go overdrawn. Kirsty from St. John, Kirsty St. John from Facebook page. I'm really struggling to get a PAYE 648 from my accountant as I'm not receiving post. What is the best way of approaching getting myself on the job retention scheme? And this is a really good point that kind of from a client's point of view, they need to be aware of what their accountant can and can't do for them at this point in time. Clients or accountants themselves are trying their best and they're working as hard as they possibly can to get as many schemes done for their clients. The only problem is that as accountants, our hands can be tied in some circumstances. Those circumstances are all to do with what's called a 64.8. Now, a 64.8 is basically authentication for you as a client to allow an accountant to work on your behalf. Now, you could be with your accountant for the past 10 years. They may not have a 64.8 in place for the PAYE scheme. They may only have a 64.8 in place for your corporation tax and for your self-employed. Every single different version of taxes at HMRC, an accountant needs to apply for a separate 64.8 on that behalf. Now, when it comes to the job retention scheme, one of the requirements as accountant is we have to have a 64.8 in place already for that particular client. And we can apply for that. The problem is that when we apply for it online, there is an actual physical posting out of a code, which A, can take time. So we could be looking at delaying getting that submission in for you. And B, if you haven't got access to that particular address, especially if you've neglected your PAYE scheme and not updated the addresses accordingly, which has been common with clients from time to time, then you do have a real risk of being able to get that 648 in place. Now, first and foremost, what I would do in that situation is I would contact HMRC. I know they're busy at the moment. I know you're going to have to wait a long time, but do persevere. Do get yourself involved in talking to them. And then when you do talk to them, your whole point then is about looking at the ability for them to be able to change that address, and then you'll be able to sort out your 648 from there. Now, obviously, that's quite a long time frame. You've got to wait for got to contact HMRC first of all, wait for them to update the thing. Accountant's got to apply for the code. Code's got to arrive, and then you've then they'll be 64.8'd. Alternative to that is for you to set up your own PAYE login portal. So you're going to go onto gov.co.uk, you're going to sign yourself in, and at that point, you're then going to be able to apply for it. Now, again, there's a time limit there. So do be careful about it, but that's probably your best way. Now, your accountant can still help you. They can still advise you what figures to put in, what boxes to tick and everything else. Well, that will relate in you yourself having to make the claim. Aroda from Facebook Messenger. Hi, Aaron. But about the bounce back loan from the government, what I'm wondering is it wise to take it? In the end, I'll be in debt, and I can imagine many small businesses already have cash flow issues. And that's a really, really good question. Again, it does go through to the point where, as a business, you do need to take responsibility in looking at your own cash flow. This is where, we've got that little bit of extra time in some circumstances. So we've got time to commit to our bookkeeping to make sure it's all up to date, have a look at exactly what your cash flow situation is. But from my point of view, for most businesses who are thinking about do they need it or don't need it, most of the time it is about looking at trying to apply for what is going to be needed for them. Now, the reason for that is we still have a bit of uncertainty ahead of us We don't know how long we're going to be in lockdown for. We don't know how long it is until businesses can go back to quote unquote normality. So, you've got to be looking at not just the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months. You've got to be looking more long term than that. Now, you do get 12 months to repay this loan. So worst case scenario, you apply for the loan, you use only, say, a small portion of it, and then you pay the rest of it back in 12 months. But you do need to consider your long-term prospects of your business and making sure that your business is going to still be around when we're all out of this. A Twitter DM, if I've already applied recently for a loan, can I still get a bounce back loan? I'm still waiting to hear from my bank. Well, this is exactly what the system's all about. If you are still in that process of being applying for a particular loan, you're not going to do yourself any harms really, and look at the bounce back loan as well. To be fair, from what you're saying here, if the bounce back loan is more kind of suited for you, you'd probably be better off with that loan anyway. So do just put yourself in for that loan. Banks are going to kind of consider what the kind of situations are at the moment. They understand how much pressure you as a client are going to be in. So we're in our last 5 minutes then. So Pearl from Facebook Messenger, I've got a business interruption loan last week. Can I give that back and take out a bounce back loan instead? Really, really good question there. And it's all going to be dependent on who you took that loan out with, what their rules and regulations around that. So really it's about communicating again with the banks. Again, they are struggling. More than anything, they're struggling with the fact that they're having to work from home and they don't quite have the systems to work from home. And they've also had COVID-19 sicknesses themselves. So they are really, really struggling to get back to people. But in that case, I would talk to them. I'd explain to them your situation. It could be a fact that they may be able to move it from one product to another. There's those options in certain banks. So talk to them. They may have better options for you. But yeah, it really does depend on it. At the same time, though, if that loan is working for you and you have kind of got your cash flow sorted for that one, then maybe just kind of utilize that for now. But, talk to your bank. They're going to be able to understand. They'll understand the situation you're in, and they'll be able to give you some options. Riven from Facebook Messenger, how is your business coming in these times? I can imagine you're very busy. What changes have you made to work effectively from home and keep the team together? Fantastic question. So for us, it was a real big cultural change. We obviously was a very much an office-based accountancy firm, and now obviously we've had to move to working from home. I think first and foremost, we've had to learn how to deal with that in terms of making sure that your staff feel connected, your staff feel like they're supported. So we did little changes, like every morning we'll have a 10-minute catch up, and we'll always have that opportunity. We make sure that everyone's on camera and we can talk to each other, and we can actually make sure that we have everyone in line. Then we were making sure all our technology was in line. So we were lucky we offer a voice over IP solution, so a telephone solution. So we were able to make sure that everyone had access to our phone and go from there. One thing then we had to make sure was that as our staff members were still kind of learning and teaching and everything else, we had to make sure we could still implement teaching and implement training for them. So that's where Microsoft Teams and all sort of manner of technology like that has been really useful. Something simple as screen sharing can be an absolute godsend in times like this. So, from our point of view, we've had to completely change it, but most importantly, we've made sure that our clients haven't seen an interruption. In the majority of services, there's been the odd ones where we've just not had able to be able to provide anymore, but majority of our services have not been affected. And I think that's your kind of thing from anyone out there who's going through the same thing. Think about your clients, think about your staff. If you can get those two happy and those two working, then you're going to be absolutely fine in continuing through this at the best of your ability. So that's it then from me. That's pretty much the end of this particular section. I have got then enough time to talk about tomorrow's speaker. So first of all, big thank you for everyone for your involvement, and thank you for the questions you've sent in today. It's really important for us that we get these questions coming in, and it's really great to see that everyone's interacting. These whole sessions are all about you, all about answering your burning questions. So please send them in appropriately. Same time again tomorrow. So we run this every single day at 8:30 with a new speaker to pepper questions with. Tomorrow we have Cameron Sharp. He's at 8:30 on Thursday morning. Cameron is a professional actor and singer, so completely different to what we've seen before, so that should be really interesting, who has worked mostly in the West End and touring musical theatre. Credits includes Barry Mann in the UK tour of Beautiful, the Carole King musical, which was cut short by COVID-19, unfortunately. After the closure of the theatres, Cameron's job was suddenly non-existent. So like everyone, he is in his industry, he has had to find ways of earning money with an industry that no longer exists. So that's going to be a really great insight into how he's had to pivot himself from what he loves and what he does on a day-to-day basis to something completely different. Cam has recently set up a series of online live stream content for companies. So I'm really going to look forward to, I'm definitely going to be tuning in for that one tomorrow. So you can look for many of an expert throughout the series. So we've got plenty of other people already signed up for you, already ready to give you information every time on 8:30. And crucially, do make sure you know that you're not alone in any of this. That's what these series are all about. Stay safe, everyone, and have a great day ahead. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next time. Cheers all. I don't know why the outro is so difficult. The outro is like, ugh. Yeah, I think it went all right. Yeah, I think that was all right.